The city of Tokyo will be entering its fourth state of emergency since the pandemic due to rising COVID-19 infections. Japan's prime minister made the announcement earlier. It's set to start Monday and last through the Summer Olympic Games, which are just 2 weeks away. Lucy Kraft is following the latest developments from Tokyo and joins us now. So, Lucy, it certainly seems like a state of emergency is completely incompatible with a major international event. But Japan is trying to pull it off. And I think it's sort of interesting to know that Japan's COVID-19 illness rate is still low compared to the U.S. and the U.K. and several other countries. So, why implement a lockdown then?
Yeah, that's a good point. So Japan has been able to speedily vaccinate its senior citizens. So that has brought the COVID fatality rate way down. Hospital occupancy rates are still very manageable. But what's alarming is that in the last few days, we've suddenly seen this spike in infections in the city of Tokyo. We've had close to 1,000 in the last 2 days. And some of the experts are saying this could quadruple within the coming weeks unless residents stop moving around and stop socializing. Tonight, the government's top medical advisor, the so-called Anthony Fauci of Japan, Mr. Omi, today warned that we're at a critical stage in the pandemic in Japan. The Delta variant now accounts for about 1/3 of all cases. And while seniors are escaping serious illness, we're starting to see younger Japanese. So we're talking about people in their 40s and 50s. The people who haven't gotten to the top of the line yet for vaccinations, they're the ones who are starting to experience alarmingly higher levels of sickness. And bear in mind that Tokyo is the biggest city in the country, and it's always had the highest number of COVID cases. And the prime minister said today that at all costs, he wants to prevent Tokyo from unleashing another wave of cases nationwide.
So, Lucy, the state of emergency is seen as a lockdown, but the COVID restrictions have been largely voluntary. How will these measures affect daily life in Tokyo?
So one thing that's unique about this state of emergency, the previous 3 were all set for 1 month. They all ended up being extended, of course, but this one's going to go for 6 weeks, which seems like an eternity. And it's going to start on Monday and go all the way, almost clear through to the end of August. And there's a bunch of reasons for this. It's going to cover, first of all, the period of the Olympics, which is July 23rd to August 8th, but it's also going to cover the period when kids are out of school. And most importantly, mid-August is when you have one of the major holiday periods of the year, the Bon holiday. And this is when Japanese traditionally go back to visit their hometowns, to see friends and family. And all of these, this concurrence of all these events happening at the same time could create a perfect storm for infections. So authorities were very keen to avoid this, and that's why they're having this lockdown continue on through the end of August almost. And on top of this, restaurants are no longer allowed to serve alcoholic beverages as of Monday. So in a word, it's going to be a long, hot summer here.
Meanwhile, the Olympics kicks off in just 2 weeks from tomorrow, to be more precise. We had already heard about some restrictions that were being put in place that, once athletes were there in sort of the Olympic Village, they weren't going to be allowed to leave and all sorts of things, and maybe no spectators, maybe few spectators. What will the state of emergency mean for the Games?
So Olympics official John Coates famously or infamously said that even under a state of emergency that the Olympics will go on. So in fact, competitions will continue pretty much as they were supposed to. The big difference is, as of about an hour ago, we had the Olympics minister Marukawa announce that there will be no spectators at any of the events that are being held in Tokyo. Of course, there will be events in other parts of Japan, but many of them, if not most, will be held in the city of Tokyo. So all of those will be behind closed doors. Now, the government, this is a subject that was very near and dear to Prime Minister Suga's heart. He had tried mightily for the last few months to create a cap of 10,000 spectators per venue, 50% at the smaller venues. And he even came out with a computer simulation by the country's famous Fugaku supercomputer, which is the fastest supercomputer in the world, that concluded that even with 10,000 spectators per stadium, provided everybody was masked, provided they were socially distanced and didn't yell or do high fives or anything, that it was a perfectly safe situation. Of course, the worry is not within the stadium, but going to and from and possibly stopping at pubs or bars on the way to or from that could be a source of potential infection. So for that reason, they couldn't. They decided not to allow the spectators to attend in Tokyo. But more than that, from a philosophical standpoint, it's untenable for the prime minister to demand this level of sacrifice from the people of Tokyo, and at the same time to say, well, the rules don't really apply to people going to the Olympics. So they were kind of forced to give up the prime minister's cherished dream of having spectators, even in a limited fashion, at the games. So that's going to be a huge difference, and it's going to make the games even quieter and a little bit desolate, I'm afraid, this year.
Japan has also ramped up its vaccination delivery nationwide. They've exceeded the government's goal of 1 million shots in arms a day. Has that started to make an impact?
Yes, it has. Today, we're at about 16% of the population fully vaccinated now. That's 40% of seniors. And if all goes according to plan, most seniors should be finished with both doses by the end of this month. And by late August, the government reckons that 40% of all citizens will be fully vaccinated. This would be a huge milestone, and it should make a big difference in some kind of semblance of return to normal life here.
We'll be watching. Lucy Kraft, thank you very much. Appreciate it.